taking a peek at the infotainment system inside of the Volvo EX40. And this is going to be the same screen setup for a number of other Volvo vehicles, but this is specifically for an electric. If you want walkthroughs on the non-electric version, check down in the description of this video. But you've got a boatload of different options available. So you've got a series of buttons along the bottom and some different options along the top. You've got what's currently going on with your connection level. So if you've got an active data plan for the vehicle, so you can essentially use it as a full Android device, you've got that flexibility, and that's going to show you what's going on with your current connection level. There's a little tab along the top here too you can pull down in order to gain access to different profiles and things like that. And then you could swipe back up to get rid of it. This symbol is if you've got a phone on the wireless charge pad. So you take the phone off, symbol disappears, back on. It's just a nice notification giving you a heads up that there's something there. You can see what user profile you're currently on, along with the current time. And then you've got a series of different options here. So you can see these options this way, pushing down. You can adjust all the icons by doing a drag and drop around to customize them. You can drop them down into different trays as well. So it's just a matter of personal preference. What do you want the layout to be? Along the bottom, you've got this icon. So that's going to jump you back into essentially whatever screen you were last into, or this icon view instead. There's the button here for your camera. So you've got the full 360 view. You've got a front-facing camera. You can launch back into the 360 view, and you can even see what's going on side by side. And then you can deactivate your parking sensor. So as you get closer or farther away to obstacles, so as you're going to back up or pull forward, it's going to let you know by beeping at you if you're getting too close to those obstacles. You can hit the camera button to make it go away, or you can hit the settings button in order to show your guidelines. So if you're reversing, these are your guidelines, and they're useful because as you rotate the wheel, you can see which direction they're facing. Straightforward there. Button press to get rid of that camera again or bring it back up. Rear auto brake, if you're backing up and there's an obstacle behind you, the vehicle can slam on its brakes for you. You can push this button in order to get to the option for turning on your driver's seat for heat, or your steering wheel for heat as well. And there are 3 independent levels available. You've got all of your different climate options there too. So you hit the little climate button and you can turn on your max defroster for the front, for the rear, turn on your AC and things like that. You can have it going to an auto mode. You can adjust the fan speed, having it going to face, feet, whatever the case may be. And then one interesting thing is because this is an electric, as you go between having climate controls enabled and things like that, inside of the cluster screen, you've got your total range counter. So if climate's off, you'll notice that your range is adjusted if it's on. So you obviously are going to use more of your range with your climate enabled, but it's kind of neat that Volvo's included that on the bottom of the screen there, showing you what your total range is if you do versus don't have your climate control on. From there, you can drop down, you can turn on your passenger side heated seats, or go to a series of different options. So a bunch of different settings, which we'll touch on last. There's the button down the middle here. So you can button push in order to get to this screen here. And then you can swipe across either way. So you might notice that all of these buttons are the same as what we saw here. So you could button push here in order to get to this screen, swipe across, and then whatever app is located there, you can then swipe the opposite way in order to see a different options. So you could launch into your maps, look at essentially point of interest icons as well. With the radio going, same idea. You can swipe across in order to get to different sources, swipe the other way in order to favorite out a station, play pause, etc. You can connect a phone this way. You could launch into CarPlay. If a phone was connected, it would give you more options. And then you've got your Google Assistant, but these are kind of dynamic based off of which apps were last open on each of these different settings. So if you had your driving journal set up, that would be different if you had your audio wagon system going instead. But I'm going to take you through all of the different options here and show you everything that you need to know. So this is an Android device, which means that it's based off of the Google operating system. So you've got Google Maps as your default option here. Now, you've got Google Maps, so you can search for addresses this way. And one really cool thing is that if you have logged in to your Google account, it's also going to show you whatever options that you've searched for on your phone for Google Maps. So that's really useful from that perspective. You could search for addresses this way, so you'd have the flexibility of searching for coordinates, so latitude first, longitude second. You can search for point of interest icons if you wanted to. So you've got a bunch of different options available. Let's just choose a random one here. And you can see that there are different routes that are available. So you can see 3 different options. It's going to tell you what your battery looks like when you get to those different options as well. And then you could hit X in order to cancel out the route. You can hit there to see your different options. You can avoid different things on the route as well. So if you wanted to avoid highways, toll roads, ferries, things like that, you'd have that flexibility. And then you can hit the little X icon there. You can exit a route in order to cancel the route that you've set up. And then if you have the route going, you can also add in an additional stop. And the benefit there is, let's say if you wanted to add in and maybe you wanted to stop at a gas station next or first, either way. Ooh, helps if I spell gas right. And we can just search for gas stations and it's going to give us a bunch of options that are available along the route. So let's just choose a random one here and we're going to add the stop in. And then you could do a drag and drop in order to say which one you want to go to first. So if you want to stop for gas before you go to the end destination, you could, and then hit just done. And then you can hit start. And when you do that, not only does it start the route inside of the infotainment system, but it also gives you the option of showing turn-by-turn directions right inside of the cluster screen. So there's a button on the steering wheel that you can push if you just want turn-by-turn directions, but this full map and cluster instead gives you all of the options that you need. You can hit X in order to cancel out either the next stop or the entire route. You can hit this little icon in order to do things. So if you wanted to show satellite, you could. So if you wanted that view instead, you could show buildings, their route options. So if you wanted to avoid highways, toll roads, ferries, things like that, you could download offline maps. So if you're going somewhere where your signal may not be strong, or if you don't have an active data connection, you can at least download offline maps so you can see where you're going as you drive. You could mute out notifications. You can just have turn-by-turn directions or voice directions as well. You could change out your heading this way, and then you can hit this in order to report crashes, police, construction, and things like that as well. You can zoom in and out this way if you'd like to. So full pinch to zoom capabilities this way, push in and out this way, or recenter. That's just one of the benefits. Like, I love using Google Maps inside of cars, but I also really enjoy using Waze. And this is a downloaded app that was done afterwards. So you just connect to the Play Store and then you can launch in. So you've got the flexibility of being able to download a few different map applications through the Play Store, which we'll touch on as we jump down here. If there were any messages that were available for the vehicle, you've got full YouTube video playback support, and that's full video playback when you're parked. So if you wanted to watch videos while you're just killing time waiting to pick somebody up, you've got the flexibility to be able to do it. So you're just going to search, jump in. There we go.
Manually adjusting gears when you're in an automatic transmission, whether that's a car, truck, or SUV, is a very straightforward
full screen, which is nice. The second that you switch out of park though, so you can see there,
you want to use the paddle shifters, manual mode,
it keeps the
that you might have, but you're too embarrassed to ask.
So it keeps the audio going inside the video, but it's not going to let you actually watch video as you're driving. But having that flexibility is really cool. So you can watch YouTube videos full screen as well, which is great. So they're actually utilizing the space. There's an available driving journal. Nothing exciting there. And then the other map application that we've downloaded, but I mentioned earlier, you can kind of do a drag and drop around if you wanted to customize it. You've got all of your different audio sources now. So that's essentially what this tray is going to be. So you've got Bluetooth available. So if your phone was hooked up over Bluetooth, you'd be able to stream audio that way. There's a radio that's available strictly for FM stations. So you can see all of the available stations based off of your GPS, based off your geographical area. You could hit the little star icon there if you wanted to save a station in. And then once you do, you just hit favorites, and that's going to show you all of the stations that you've currently favorited. And then you could just deselect, help out, back in, and then that gets rid of your stations as well. And where that also comes in handy is that you could push the buttons on the steering wheel here in order to jump between all of your available presets. An easy thing though, in order to change to any station, would be to just hit the voice command prompt. 94.9 FM.
Playing 94.9 FM on the radio.
So you could tune to stations this way instead. It's so much easier using your voice to tune to stations rather than kind of flipping through, but that's going to be a matter of preference. SiriusXM is also available here, so it's going to take a second in order to load up, and same idea, you'd be able to save all of your different presets or favorite stations there. You can see different category views, and then if we just hit one of these random stations, pop up, you can see the current song, you can save it there as well. You can hit the little icon along the top in order to show all of your SiriusXM subscription information too. and then back, brings you back home. Now, the vehicle as a default doesn't have support for AM radio, and it doesn't have support for USB audio either. Downloading Audio Wagon would give you USB support for playback, and then Open Radio gives you a boatload of different radio stations as well, and that's across the world, which is amazing. So you've got different options that are available. You can look for different category views, country views, and things like that. So those are two apps that I definitely recommend you download when you get your Volvo. From there, we are now looking at connecting a phone. So let's go through, and as of right now, you can see that no devices are connected. So we're going to start off and connect an iPhone. Just going to go pair device, and we're looking for, there we go, iPhone 14 to show up, and we're going to hit next there, and it's going to take a second. There we go, pin numbers match up, so we're going to pair. Allow contacts and favorites to sync. This is not my car, so I'm going to say no to that one. Obviously, if it was yours, you could say yes to that. We're going to say done and okay, and done, and continue. There we go. And as you can see there, we are now fully connected. You can pair a new device, you can edit devices as well, and then if we go to edit device, you can delete it. So as of right now, I don't want to delete the device, because if we go back to phone, you can see favorites, contacts, keypad, and things like that. You can search the phone. If multiple phones were connected, you could do a device swap, or you can hit this button in order to adjust the start screen. So as a default, it's going to start off on your favorites, but you can have it launch into your contacts, etc. So if you were to hop out, you were to go into your phone, it's going to default it to whatever one you've selected there. So I've set it to the keypad instead. The car also does have support for Apple CarPlay, and you do have to use a USB cable in order to make it happen. And it does have to be a USB-C cable that supports data transfer, because you might have a cable that's strictly for charging, and then there are ones that are for data transfer and charging. But if you're running into issues connecting to Apple CarPlay, check down in the description of this video for some simple walkthroughs that you can try in order to set yourself up. But all you're going to do, down the center there are two different USB ports. You're going to use the one off to the left-hand side, and then just plug in yourself into your phone and give it a second there. And there we go. We're going to accept that. We have to make sure we accept in order to be able to use CarPlay. And it'll take a second. 3, 2, 1. Do you want to allow CarPlay while the phone is locked? Yes, you definitely want to make sure you do that. So as of right now, we're fully connected to CarPlay. Hopping inside brings you to this screen. So you've got full CarPlay, and it's very responsive. Now, the screens here are going to be dynamic, specifically this one. So this essentially, I want to think of it as your home screen. So along the bottom here, you've got a button to get to this icon view, back to your home screen. There's the current time, which map was open last, which audio application was open last, which miscellaneous application was open last, and then your current connection level. But on the home screen here, so the map, whatever map was open last will always be there. Whatever audio application was last playing will be here. And then the search icon may be the full screen, but if you've got a calendar notification that's coming up today, that's going to show up inside of your event details. So if you didn't have a calendar notification, it would just be the search box, but with calendar notifications today, you've got this little split instead. You've got Apple Maps, Google Maps, and Waze support, but my favorite map application to use is Waze. And there are a few big reasons why, like as you start to drive, if there are cops that are pulling people over, things like that, you can mark them off on the map. It's a really great application in my opinion. So that's going to be a matter of preference, but I personally am a big fan of using Waze. But you've got YouTube Music that's available. Live One's a radio app. You've also got audiobooks, podcasts, and so many other things that are available inside of this ride. Because we're in the electric, there's ChargePoint and Flow to see what stations are around you. You could hit the settings icon here in order to adjust things out. So if you wanted to adjust out the wallpaper and change that up a little bit, you've got the flexibility to do it. Siri's available there and a few other options. So it's straightforward. And then one nice thing is that if you do a long button push and hold on the steering wheel, that's going to activate your Siri assistant. A short button push is going to activate the built-in car assistant, but that long push and hold is going to be your Siri assistant instead. You can hit the little home icon here to jump back home. And then if you wanted to jump back into CarPlay, hop back in that way. And then on your phone, you've got the flexibility to customize things a little bit. So if you go into your settings, you go into General, and then CarPlay, you can find the vehicle, and then from there you can forget it, you can customize it, or disallow CarPlay while the phone is locked. But let's say if you're a fan, you want your podcast at the top, and then if you wanted Waze up there as well, you could do that. And then anything with a minus arrow next to it, so minus button, you could push in order to remove and delete any of these applications. but it saves them at the bottom of the screen. So you could just hit the plus icon in order to add them back in, and they're added back in. But if you've played around with it too much and you don't like what you've done, you can hit reset in order to bring you back to the factory default screen there instead. You can hit this button to go back home. And then if we go into settings, you could go to a few options here. We're specifically looking for connectivity and then Bluetooth. So as of right now, you can see that there's nothing going on, even though we've paired the device, and that's because we're connected to CarPlay. So if we disconnect, you can see that Bluetooth turns on. So I know that's a bit of info, but that's how you set up Apple devices inside of the EX40. Setting up Android devices is the exact same process. So if you weren't on the screen, again, all you're going to do is go into your phone, but we've already got the iPhone connected, so we're just going to swap out, and we're in this screen, where we're just going to pair a new device. And we're just waiting for Volvo EX40 to show up. Perfect. So we've got the phone there. And next, do you want to essentially go for phone calls and for audio? And we said yes there. Perfect. Pairing request. PIN numbers match up. So we're going to hit OK there. Perfect. Do you want to allow access to contacts and messages? This is not my car, so I'm saying no to that one. And you can see there, we're fully connected now for both phone calls and for audio. Now here's the thing. This is an Android device, but it does not support Android Auto, so strictly Apple CarPlay. But you do have the flexibility of going to the Play Store to download the majority of the apps you'd find through Android Auto anyways, but there's literally no way that you could set yourself up for Android Auto. So strictly going to be Apple CarPlay. But one nice thing is that with multiple phones connected, you can do a mix and match. So if you wanted to, you could have one phone connected for phone calls and then the other phone connected for media. So you could kind of do a mix and match this way instead. And there's literally no way to set yourself up for Android Auto inside of Volvo vehicles. So strictly going to be CarPlay. But like I said, it's a full Android device anyways. And then if you wanted to delete phones from the vehicle, just hit Edit Devices. You can delete and forget, and then delete and forget. And you've just unpaired and deleted both phones from the vehicle. And it's that easy setting up Android and iPhones inside of the Volvo EX40. And from here, we've got a boatload of other options. So you could hit your Google Assistant button that way, and that launches into your Assistant. That's the difficult way to do it. You've also got the flexibility of hitting the voice command prompt in order to adjust it that way. But you can also say, hey, Google, and that's going to launch in there as well. So you'd be able to do things like change songs, radio stations. You can navigate using your voice, and so many other things using your voice instead. Since this is on electric, you've got this range assistant. So you can see here that we've got our current range. So 430 kilometers of total range on fully charged battery. As of right now, we're not really consuming much because we're just sitting down. The climate control is not on, but the second we go to turn on the climate, watch this. So if we go back into our range assistant, you can see that the range is dropped. So if we turn our climate back off again, hop back into our range assistant, it's hot back up. So the range is going to be based off of what's going on. So your current speed, your driving style, if you've got your climate control going and things like that. So you'll notice that if you're on the range assistant as you're driving, the numbers are going to fluctuate quite a little bit. You can hit this in order to go to your car status. And in car status, it's essentially going to be for your tire pressure. It lets you know if there's anything kind of out of whack. And here, air quality. So there is a built-in air purifier in the vehicle, and you would be able to see the in-car. There we go. So yeah, so you can see the in-car air quality there. We're currently set at good. And then outside air quality, if you have location sharing turned on, it's also going to tell you what the outside air quality is. But there is a built-in particulate filter inside of this ride. You can log into the Play Store. So you do actually have to sign in order to do it. But once you do, there are so many different options that are available. So you could search for different games if you wanted to, and you could download these different games right to the screen itself. So if you're just kind of kicking back and trying to kill some time, you'd have the option of playing different games as you go. And that's the same thing. Like there are different apps that are available, productivity apps and things like that. So you can see different apps, subscription, you could log in or out that way. And back home into a fully digital owner's manual. So if this video doesn't show you everything that you need to know, or maybe you're getting some weird messages inside of your cluster screen and you're not really sure what any of these icons mean, you would be able to just kind of dive through in order to see what different symbols are, which is kind of useful, but you can also see charging. So charging times, electric vehicle charging and things like that. So you would be able to see exactly what's going on with different charge rates, how long it's going to take for you to charge up, charging time for DC supercharging, depending on your kilowatt hour output and things like that. So I do like that you've got this full digital owner's manual that's built into the ride. Then the other one to point out, all of your different settings. And there are so many different things here. Starting off with driving assistance. So you've got 2 different driving modes, so standard versus off-road. And then when you hop into these different modes inside of the cluster screen, you'll see a few tiny things that are going to be a little bit different, essentially letting you know that you're off-road versus traditional driving instead. Pilot Assist is an interesting one. So as you're using the adaptive cruise control system, there are 2 different options available. So adaptive cruise, and then you've got your Pilot Assist, which the Pilot Assist, it's not self-driving, but it essentially keeps you perfectly balanced in your lane as you drive. So it's a full lane keeping system as well. You can utilize the switch on the left-hand side of the steering wheel. So you're going to push the button here in order to change between the 2 different modes that are available. And then at the bottom of the steering wheel as you're driving, you'll notice that there's a symbol that's going to change there. But if you want to walk through on the steering wheel buttons, the cluster screen, things like that, you'll find it down in the description, including a walkthrough on how the adaptive cruise control system works. There's a lane keeping system. There's road sign assistance. So whether or not you want that one showing up inside of the cluster screen is going to be a matter of preference. So you can see that road sign popping up, yay or nay. So it takes a second to kind of pop up there, and you can see whatever your road sign or whatever your current road speed is. Ready to drive notification, nothing exciting there. And then one pedal drive, there are 3 different modes that are available, and it's really neat. So you could either turn one pedal drive off completely, you can have it turned on. So when you take your foot off of the accelerator, you slow down rapidly. But with auto, it's really interesting. It's almost like it's adaptive cruise control, because if there's no car in front of you, you take your foot off the accelerator, you're going to slow down fairly gradually, almost like a traditional internal combustion feel. Versus if there's somebody in front of you in the auto mode, it slows you down very rapidly, almost like you have one pedal drive on. At first, I wasn't crazy about it, but the more I've used it, it's actually a really cool system. And then steering wheel firm, just the firmness of the actual steering itself. Since this is the electric, you've got a boatload of different options here for charging. You can set your charge time. So Volvo's saying that 90% is recommended. So I normally say 80 to 90%. And the only reason you're going to want to go to 100% is if you're using the charge the next day. But otherwise, you're going to want to keep it at either 80 or 90%. If you're charging up, so you're at a charge station and you find that it's not charging properly, you can also adjust your maximum allowable amperage as well. So if you're at a level 2 charge station, it's not charging up, just drop your charge limit to something else, to something a little bit lower in order to actually be able to charge up properly. You can also set a timer. So do you want to schedule charging in, yay or nay? And when do you want to charge up? So you'd be able to select different times in order to charge. So if you know you're going to get cheap electricity rates from, let's say, 7:30 at night until, 6 o'clock in the morning, you'd have the flexibility to do it. So you're only going to charge during those windows. You can toggle the timer on or off that way. Hopping back home, if there was a charger cable connected, you'd also be able to unlock the charging cable. So if it's connected, it would just say unlock, and then you can unlock it from inside, but you could also do that from outside too. There are different sound options that are available. And the sound options, you can have it driver focused, focused for everybody, focused for the back, focused for the front, for the rear, etc. So you've got different options there. You've got a surround sound, and then you can also adjust your treble, mid-range, and bass. So I find in this car, in my opinion, bass cranked a few, treble down. So something like this gives pretty good audio, but that's going to come down to a matter of personal preference. There are different connectivity options. So we saw there Bluetooth. That's where we're going in order to hook up new Bluetooth devices, whether that's phones, MP3 players, things like that. You can turn off your vehicle data there as well. As I mentioned, you do need an active data plan, but when you do, you could essentially use this almost as a full cell phone, just without calling capabilities. So you'd be able to use maps and download apps and things like that. You can connect to a Wi-Fi network at home. Big benefit there is that if you don't have an active data connection, so you don't have vehicle SIM, you'd be able to download maps and things like that. There are a boatload of different controls here. Random one is that you'd have the flexibility of being able to fold down the rear headrests. It's such an odd little thing, but you could fold them down from in here if you wanted to. Your wiper service position, with that on, it locks your wiper blades up, so you'd be able to change them out yourself if you want to. Exterior mirrors tilt in reverse. So if you have this enabled, shift yourself into reverse, the mirrors are going to tilt down in order for you to see what's going on the ground around you. Do you want to fold mirrors while your car is locked? The mirror auto dimming function is kind of neat. So your side view mirrors are going to dim if there's somebody, well, later on at night, if there are people behind you, lights are too bright, you'll notice they dim out in order to make things a little bit easier for you on your eyes. It's actually kind of neat and pretty useful. The wireless charge pad, you can disable it. Rear seat reminders, so after you drive, put yourself into park, it's going to tell you to check the back seats just in case you've forgotten somebody back there. Visual aid, so when you go to lock the doors, you get a little notification there, so a little audible notification, yay, nay. When you go to unlock doors, is it all doors become unlocked or just the driver's door? Trip displays. Do you want to show that trip information inside of the cluster screen, yay or nay? And that's at the bottom of the screen here. So there are a few different options, nothing showing up, auto mode versus a manual reset mode instead. You can adjust the interior brightness, welcome light when you go to approach the vehicle, and then you can also turn the vehicle off this way if you wanted to. Profiles, another very useful one. So if you've got multiple people driving the vehicle, you'd be able to complete a profile setup. And where that comes in handy, you can connect a key to your profile. You can log into your Google account. You can even set a screen lock. So if you wanted to have either a pattern, a pin, whatever the case may be, so that people can't just pull into your profile and look through all of your different options here, you could essentially lock it out. But if you're the only one driving, not a big deal, but I at least would say set up some sort of security. But having your profile set up if there are multiple people driving is very useful because it'll remember all of your presets for your radio, so all of your different favorites. If you've got different apps downloaded and things like that, it's going to remember it based off of you. There's basic privacy information here as well. So you can see all of this basic information. There's nothing overly exciting here. There is an ads manager here. I personally have never seen any ads inside of a Volvo vehicle before. Little concerning that that's there, but like I said, I haven't seen anything as of yet. There's basic Google information. So you've got your ads Google manager, password manager. You can send feedback to Google, nothing exciting. And then you've got your system information. Because this is a Google device, there are so many languages that are available. And the languages available are going to be region specific. There's autofill, text to speech. Date and time is a useful one too. So you can set the date and time automatically and set the time zone automatically too. Date and time automatic totally makes sense. Time zone automatic though, if you straddle a time zone and it's constantly flipping you from one to the other, you can manually set your own time zone there instead. Or you can just let the vehicle determine it for you. Do you want to use the military time instead? So 12 versus 24-hour mode. And back, measurement units is another useful one. So you can jump between metric, imperial, etc. So if we jump in between these options inside of the cluster screen, you can see that it's adjusting things out along the very bottom. So you've got whether you're in miles, kilometers, etc. Do you want to have a split? So and that's going to work the opposite. So if you're in the States, you'd be able to jump between kilometers, miles that way, and it'll be a little split screen there instead. And then you can also adjust whether you're in Celsius or Fahrenheit, and that's going to adjust your climate down the bottom of the screen. And basic security information, there's basic about info, nothing overly exciting there. Storage info, because this is an Android device where you can download things, you can see how much storage you've used inside the vehicle. And then you can reset a few different things. So you can reset all of your app preferences. And you saw earlier under profiles, you'll be able to fully delete your profile as well, make yourself an admin, etc. So I know that is a lot of information, but that's everything that you need to know about the infotainment system inside of the Volvo EX40.